I'll go get the surprise.
So, I know you've all been eagerly awaiting the newest addition to the parish household, Mr. Hugo. Well, Hugo.
He's very cute.
He is. And he's very cuddly. And he likes a lot of attention. And Lexi loves him. And he's our bigly. He's 8 weeks old. And I think he's just seen himself in the camera for the first time and is a bit memorised. Aren't you, baby boy? And Hugo likes to be held. A lot. And he doesn't like to sleep at normal hours. So, I've spent the last, I don't know, 3 days up, whenever he's up, and feeding him and, getting him adjusted and stuff. Lex, come up here if you want to come up. So, we are now officially a family of 4. Well, 4, 2 fur babies rather than just one.
But we should probably get into the topic.
Yes, we should. So, but I just wanted to introduce him, and I know he may not seem like a big surprise to all of you, but to us he's pretty special, and he's very much wanted. And he's been a great new addition to our lives. So, and we love him lots. Don't we, baby boy?
So, this week's topic is our coming out stories. And it's probably going to be a long one, probably not as long as Chantel and Kerry's, but,
So, depending, because trying to upload videos and things for us can sometimes be a complex task, we may have to do a part 2, so we'll just pre-warn you of that. So, this week I'm going to go first.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always known that I was gay. From a very, very young age. I was always very masculine in the way I dressed, and I always wanted to wear bow ties, and I used to raid my dad's clothes cupboard, and I'd always be the father and mummy and daddies or doctors or whatever we were playing. I'd always be sort of like the male counterpart, yeah. And my first experience with sort of coming out remotely was when I went and spent a day with my mum at her work at the time, and there was a lovely gay gentleman who was the office receptionist, and obviously my mother had sort of had not some concerns, but had a feeling or an inkling that she was raising a homosexual daughter or child, because she'd spent a lot of time talking to him. And we came home from that day, and she sat at the end of my bed, and she didn't necessarily say very much, but she just said, I was talking to him, and he came over and he'd spoken to me during the day a couple of times, and he said, look, to my mum, look, I actually think, she probably is gay, and mum just said, whatever's going to make you happy in this life, that's what's important to your father and I. And I was really confronted by it at the time, because I was only very young, and I sort of, although I had these feelings, it wasn't sort of something that I was prepared to deal with and be open to. And so I did a lot of faking for sort of the next 12 or 18 months, and the person that I was supposedly dating at the time, who was really my best friend, who was also gay, you know, he and I were best friends, and nothing ever happened between us or anything like that, but, you know, I was his cover and he was mine, and he decided to come out in high school, and then, I sort of, not necessarily followed his lead, but I just didn't pursue anything. I didn't pursue guys, is what I should say. I didn't, you know, I was just true to myself from that point on. Once I saw him come out, and we're not friends anymore, which is really sad because we were really, really close, and my family, you know, really loved having him as a part of our lives. And once we both sort of came to the agreement that we were both gay, and this is the life that we were going to, lifestyle that we wanted to lead, that was going to fulfill us the most, we, you know, stuck together on that and helped each other. And I was really lucky that, maybe it was because my dad was a teacher at the school, I'm not quite sure, but although I had a little bit of bullying, it wasn't it wasn't because of my sexuality. It was more to do with the fact that I was, you know, headstrong and didn't like being told what to do, and I had a father who was a teacher. That was more what my bullying was about. I had a few encounters of homophobia, but I was really, really lucky. And in terms of coming out to my parents, I never had a big sit-down conversation about it. It was just known, and, like, I was really lucky in the respect that my parents just knew that I was gay. And they respected that, and they respected that that was the way I was, and that once I made my choice to embrace my sexuality, they stuck by me. You know, they didn't bat an eyelid when I brought my first girlfriend home. I had my first same-sex relationship was with somebody who was much, much older than me at the time. And it was a very complicated situation. And I was very young. As I said, I was very, very young at the time. And I think I would have been like 14. And that was a really hard thing for my parents to sort of adjust to. And I broke a lot of rules in terms of boundaries and being willing to, you know, listen to my parents and follow their rules. And I scared a lot of people because I'd just, you know, switch off my phone and go and visit this woman at her house and get up to no good. And you know, I put my parents and my family, especially my poor grandmother who I was living with at the time, through a lot of really hard moments. But we got through it, and, you know, I had to find my own identity and my own self within all those moments, and I'm really glad that I did. So my coming out story was really easy. My parents obviously knew from a very young age that they were raising a homosexual daughter, and they embraced that and supported me, and it wouldn't have mattered had I chosen to be a purple alien. They would have loved me no matter what, and they still, to this day, feel that way. They have their moments. They don't necessarily always agree with the decisions that I make, but they respect them, and they love this one. Absolutely adore Amy. She's a third daughter to them, which is what they love. And you know, as long as they get grandchildren, other than just fur babies, I think they'll be happy. So that's essentially it. I was really lucky. What else can I tell you? That's my grandparents. My grandparents, I didn't have a coming out to any of my family. And technically none of my friends, because most of my friends were gay and they just knew, everyone just knew. But my grandparents, I don't know how they were it wasn't discussed, it wasn't talked about, it wasn't,
It's almost like a don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of.
Even now, it's sort of, like, it's not that they haven't accepted me or anything like that, because they have. I mean, Nanny is my nanny now.
Yeah, and she asks, and my grandfather talks to you more than he does me in some instances. But that's not because my grandfather doesn't love or respect me. That's just because that's my grandfather. He does that to all the spouses in our family.
But I think it's more of, I'm not sure whether they're just not comfortable, they just don't know what to really talk about.
And there's a big generational gap in terms of being out. And they love and they respect us, but there are some things that they won't. We had a big struggle with our wedding, but that's a whole nother story. But they came in the end, and I think they're really glad that they came, and we're extremely close to them. We love them dearly, and they mean the world to us. And for that generational style, at the end of the day, I've got to take my hat off to them, because there are a lot of people from that generation who would disown their grandchildren for being gay, let alone, embrace Amy as much as they have, because they adore the ground that she walks on. And my gran, unfortunately, my pop was never, wasn't alive to meet Amy, which is really sad, but I know that he would have embraced me for just the person that I was, and my gran loves Amy as well, and they have great chats and stuff as well. So.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is.
So, I've been very, very fortunate. I have, led a very comfortable life in terms of my outness. I've been out probably longer than I actually realised myself. And I did sort of think at one point that I was kind of in the closet, but I wasn't really. So I'm very, very, very fortunate that I haven't had any major moments. I think also being very a very outgoing personality, and I think I've mentioned before, I'm known as what's called a 100-footer. You can tell from 100 feet away that I'm gay. I think for that reason, I think that's probably why I've never had to truly worry about being outed. I have, at points in my life, pretended to be heterosexual, and that was just for my own security. I'm sure the other couples have been in situations where you realise that sometimes you have to choose your battles, and sometimes the battles that you choose, sometimes you have to hide a part of yourself in order for your own safety. So I think that's the easiest way that I would describe it. But the older I get, the more out I get. I think, I'm not hiding. I don't, if somebody asks me, I tell them honestly. I don't bleed rainbows like some of my friends.